Hello everyone, Derek Floyd here, IK Multimedia. Welcome to another edition of D-Flow's Audio Toolbox. This is the segment where I interview special guests who just happen to use IK tools to stay creative in their workflow. And if you love the content you see here, always hit us with a like or subscribe to let you know you get the most updated content as soon as it's available. And as always, our segments are powered by IK Multimedia and Lewitt Microphones. Now, if you really do enjoy what you see, do one extra thing for me and hit a share. Share the link with someone else so that everyone can be involved and see the creative tools that people are using out there in the industry. Now, everybody waits to see what new product we're going to give away today because we always do giveaways on D-Flow's Audio Toolbox. And today's no exception. So today we're going to give away my personal favorite, SampleTank 4 Max. That's right, the groove and sound workstation that has changed the game. With tons of sounds, arpeggiators, mixers, effects, with a great sound engine, you name it, this thing can get it done. So I think you're going to be excited, but you got to stay to the very end to make sure you get your own personal copy of SampleTank 4. So let's see who's ready for that one. Now on to our special guest. They just happen to be an audio and video production duo who are known for their creativity in working with video, audio, mixing, mastering, and even video content for businesses. They work with PBS, MTV, multiple artists, and they've done front of house and mixing inside the box. So these folks can basically just do it all. Professionals in every level. We've got one that's an actual audio engineer for over 17 years, and the other a multi-instrumentalist who's actually an engineer as well. So today they're going to share how our tools help them get their job done almost every day in a professional setting. Will you please let me welcome Fela and Dennis from 23dB. How you doing, guys?
Yes, we are here, Derek. How are you?
Hey, I like that purple couch, man. It's looking good.
Yes.
Thank you. We're at our podcast studio.
Y'all taking me back to the Prince vibe. Hey, what's up? Come on now.
My favorite artist, yes.
Yes, my favorite. I'm a huge Prince fan. So when I saw Purple Couch, I'm like, yeah.
Oh, my mom had every one of his albums. And, you know, he came out with an album every year from 1976. People don't really realize that, like how epic of a catalog you got to have to do an album a year.
And every one of them be different from the other one.
Crazily different from the other.
He was pretty brilliant like that. Pretty brilliant.
Oh, and yeah. He was my goal for mixing. So that was, I hate that he passed away. But, you know, I got to mix a lot of other people. So
Nice. And you said this is your podcast studio. Tell me a little bit about that. You guys have a podcast that you do called The Art of Music Technology or something like that? What's it called?
Yep. The Art of Music Tech that we started 5 years ago out of Dennis's apartment. And now a year and a half we've had our own studio that we've now been helping other brands and businesses get the word out about what they do, and you know, knowing for us how important getting out who you are and what you do via long form like this. We knew we could help out other businesses, so we have a third business partner in this as well. Her name is Joy. She's an entertainment lawyer. And and we came together and came up with this place. So we have this set up, and we have another 4-person table set up in another in the other room, which is next to us.
Y'all cover from A to Z, man. Y'all get it done.
Yeah. So, you know, you could do like a lifestyle thing with this kind of set, or you can kind of be at a table and, you know, do it that way as well. Yeah. So, we're in Fort Lee, New Jersey, right next to the GW Bridge. You can see New York City from here. We're in kissing distance of the city. So,
Dennis, what were you going to say, man? I thought you were going to say something.
Oh, yeah. I mean, our live room we use for recording drums and instruments as well. So this is a podcast studio during the day and recording studio at night.
I love it. So dual purpose, man. It's got to be that way. Dual purpose these days, right?
Yeah. Whatever makes money and keeps these doors open.
So knowing a little bit about the two of you, I know both of you are engineers in your own right, obviously. Fela, first, when did you discover that you even wanted to be an engineer? Was this something you just automatically knew as a youngster?
Nope. No family or anything in the business. I'm from a very small town in South Carolina called Sherraw. Our claim to fame is it's the hometown of Dizzy Gillespie.
Oh, okay, that's all right. That's all right.
Yeah.
All right. That's a pretty big claim to fame. So
Exactly. Yeah, so I came from this small town. In the 8th grade, I took a career placement test, and it said audio engineer. I was like,
get out in the 8th grade.
Yeah, in the 8th grade, and then
what test was that?
I know everybody has.
Wow.
Yes, but it was a career assessment test, and it said that, and I just started researching, and I just loved the thought of it. And I was like,
wow.
Oh, it's everywhere. TV, radio, everything needs audio. So I decided to take that path, and I ended up finding Full Sail, Full Sail University now, back in probably about 98, 99, when I was in high school in the 10th grade. And then I was like, okay, found my school. That's it. I'm locked in.
Wow.
And I just was reading Mix magazine and everything I could find until I graduated and I went to Full Sail and I finally got to touch things. So I mean, that's like 5 years of just reading about what I wanted to do and never, touching it, because I'm from such a small town.
Sure.
There was no venues. There was there was no radio station I could really get into. It was nothing that I could touch the boards. So, that was kind of torturing for that many years. And then once I got to Full Sail, it was game on. And then once I graduated, I've been in it ever since. So about 18 years now.
Oh my goodness. And Dennis, what about you? When did you first discover that you wanted to be an engineer? Because I know you're also a musician as well. Give me a little bit about that.
Yeah, both of my parents musicians. My mom is she used to be a piano teacher, and when I was 6 or like 8 or 6 years old, my dad had a record player. He had a reel-to-reel, so I learned how to record vinyl to tape when I was a little kid. So
no way.
Yeah, I was introduced to recording at early age, and then I picked up guitar when I was 16. Moved to the United States when I was 23, and wanted to pursue music career. And
where are you from?
I was born in USSR, but after USSR broke up, my country, Kazakhstan. So I'm from Kazakhstan technically, but I was born in USSR.
Okay.
I came to this country, didn't speak English, so I had a lot to learn and accomplish, and I was open to any opportunity. First 2-3 months, I bought an American Telecaster. It cost me $1,100.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was my first, real instrument that I really enjoyed. I was in a band for 8 years, and I met Fela while I was playing at Spike Hill in Brooklyn. And the first time I saw a girl behind the mixing board, and I just moved to New York, so to me everything was new. And seeing a girl behind the mixing board, I was like, oh wow, that's different.
Yeah.
And then that's how I met Fela actually. And
at a small venue in Brooklyn, in Williamsburg. when the indie rock scene was still, a big thing. It kind of died out, a few years ago. But it was how I cut my teeth in New York.
Man, and Fela, you said you went to Full Sail, obviously. How did that shape your concept of the real world? Because I know they teach a lot of things there, and being a woman in the industry, and that part of it was new. It was rare at that point, no? It
was rare. Not many people were crazy supportive. It was like, oh, okay, that thing. So, but I knew that I could make it happen. Though I had no doubt that if it was just about hard work and making it happen, I could do that. I can work somebody under the table.
Yeah. I feel you.
So going to Full Sail, it was so much hitting me because at the time it was only a 1 year long 12 months, and you got your associates. I mean, now it's longer. They give you a little bit more time to take it in. But it's like, okay, the first 3 months is kind of generals. You kind of learn about everything because they're also a film school, game design school, graphic school. So you kind of have a general study the first 3 months. And then every month after that, you learn a new discipline, recording, studio recording, live sound, post-production sound. So everything was a month. And about the 5th month in, I took the live sound course, and I was like, okay, this may be it. And then by the time I graduated that year, which was like 2002, the Hit Factory closed down in New York City, and the M Audio box came out. And I was like, oh, this is going to people's houses now. This isn't going to be the big rooms anymore. And I was really feeling live sound at the time, so I was like, and you got paid immediately.
That's like, always good.
Exactly.
Yes.
To be a stagehand and stuff, at least you got some money. But when you go into the big rooms or whatever, you're working for no money for like 5-6 months. Which I'm not mad at that, because you do learn a lot, but for me, I couldn't afford it. Yeah. But I had to stay in the business. I was not gonna not be in it. So sure. So for me, it was just like, okay, I'm gonna switch it up some, and I'm gonna go into the live realm, and that's pretty much how I started out. And only in this last 5 years since we started 23 dB did I get back into the studio part of it. But I mean, it's all the same. You do great if you can come up with great game structure, whether it's live or in the studio. It's the same thing. It's going to sound good. So
sure. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So I was all right, I just got to do great game structure. That's the easy part. So it's just started taking the skill set from just doing live, and ended up doing front of house for Christian McBride, but then also doing his live recordings. And he found me via LinkedIn. How that came about. Wow. Because at the time, LinkedIn had just about 7-8 years ago, it was just all text. But then they started letting you upload media. And so I started, putting out my 2-track recordings at places like Spike Hill, where we mentioned earlier. And because I saw no other engineers were doing that. They didn't have a picture up. They didn't have proof of what they were doing as an engineer. Right. But then I saw people like Chris Lord-Alge doing that. And I'm like, if a Grammy Award winner is showing everything he's doing, that's the least I could do as a nobody at the time. Was to do as much as he did. So I saw that, and I took my cue to start building my own profile and putting out there what I was doing. And at the same time, living in New York City, I realized the algorithm for LinkedIn, the more content you put in, the higher they ranked you. Because at the time, they were literally doing a ranking system. Like if you put in audio engineer New York City, they would have like a #1 spot.
Got you.
So I was like, I saw myself rising in that ranking as I put more video and more stuff out. So it got to where I saw that I was #1.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome.
And then a few months later, Christian McBride hit me up, who's a 6-time Grammy Award winning jazz musician, and he had like 6 bands. He had a big band, trio, quartet, quintet, and I ended up going out with him. And then he was like, "Yo, I want you to record everything when we go out." Wow. So I'm like, Okay, so then I
Okay.
really started buckling down on live recording. So that's how
Right.
that all came about, and 23DB Productions, basically.
Okay, well, Dennis, you are actually a multi instrumentalist as well as an engineer. How do you feel that equips you to be a better engineer, being able to hear and know how to play the instruments and mix them at the same time?
I think both those elements complement each other because, and Fela and I've done live sound engineer, so being on stage is important as being an engineer, right? And I think being a musician, you always look for, great recording or great sound on stage. And if you understand that, you can actually navigate and help yourself, the moments when you maybe bring down your amp on stage and let other people shine too. So those very details, they help, me as a musician or as an engineer to communicate whether I'm mixing, recording, or I'm playing. And I think any musician nowadays should know how to engineer and record himself. Especially now, you're not going on tour, you're not going in studios, you're stuck at home.
Sure.
You need to have your own setup and learn how to record vocals, guitar, synths, instruments, and not that you record. And I realize playing with a band, when you record something, it's not final stage. There is mixing, there is mastering. But if you're not familiar with those elements, you rely on somebody else opinion, knowledge, or skills. But if you know how to communicate next stages, it's just easier for both of us to get a great product at the end. I think that's how we think, even for our podcast studio or music recording. I think it's important to know every step of the process that you can explain to your customers too, because a lot of people don't know, especially in the business. Lawyers don't know what the gain is. They don't know how to compress audio.
Right.
But if you know how to explain in simply to them, I think that's important too.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, knowing that both of you had these separate skills, how did the two of you connect? Who met who? How did that come about?
So I worked at I guess one of the biggest sound companies in the world, Claire, for a year, and it was great. I was on a bunch of great boards that I just got to mess with in the warehouse, because at the time they owned a shop in Mount Vernon, New Jersey, and that was when I started recording, and I was using their microphones. So my boss would let me take home whatever microphones, had just come off of Good Morning America or something like that. So I would have like $10,000 worth of stuff at this $50 a night gig, but it made me get better at recording. So once I started recording, I was like, oh, okay. Then I got some crack plugins. This is back in the day. I couldn't. And I started, doing some mixing on and like mastering on these 2-track recordings. And then I wanted to expand it even more. So I went on Craigslist, New York City, and actually looked for people that wanted their tracks mastered for free, just so that there was no pressure on doing, on what, was going to come out of it, because I was just learning. But sure. I knew to get better, you just have to do it. True. And I came across his post on Craigslist. Wow. Funny enough, we had already met, at Spike Hill, and we didn't even realize it till like a year later. Yeah, and we were corresponding online for a while. And then we finally met again right the day before
Hurricane Sandy.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
And they had a show in New York City. Then we kind of lost touch because all of his equipment got destroyed.
Underwater.
Oh my
The
gosh!
next day.
Wow.
Yeah, like
Oh.
all of his stuff. So I was like,
Oh.
oh, wow, so we kind of lost touch for a while. And then Dennis started buying gear again and reached out to me online. Like we were still following each other on Facebook. And I know what it was. I had created my first website, my first personal website. And he was like, oh, it looks great. He was like, oh, I got some studio equipment. Would you like to do some studio stuff? And I was like, not studio stuff, but we could do some live recording stuff. Because I was still working at Spike Hill, and I was noticing, the indie bands, would sometimes want multi-track recordings. And they only had an analog board. And it's funny that this was right before all those like the Personas. Well, I think the Personas was barely out, and like the X32, all of those smaller formatted boards that also multi-track, they weren't everywhere yet. So we still had like a window of just recording for people. So we did that the first, few years. That's what the business was just like, finding all the venues in New York City and just giving them our card and like, hey, we'll record whenever you have somebody that needs recording. And it kind of grew from there, and we ended up meeting somebody from Atlantic Records, and we ended up doing some live stuff for them. So, it's why you moved to New York, is the opportunity.
Sure.
So it grew out of that.
That's awesome. Dennis, obviously you have the talents of the multi-instrumentalist and the engineer side, and you've been behind the board on a mixing board in the studio, you've been behind the board in front of house, you've done a little bit of all of it. What would you say is probably your most passionate skill? What do you get inspired from the most? Being behind the board, creating, or being on the live setting?
I think as a musician, I've learned that being a musician on stage is great, but observing a musician behind the mixing board. And Fela and I work at this venue, Iridium Jazz Club, which is as big as Blue Note at the moment.
Every major jazz and even some rock people, we that really put a lot of names.
Ron
Carter, Michelle Ndegeocello, Bilal. Just
Tim Reynolds. Actually, I mixed Tim Reynolds acoustic. Dave Matthews Band guitarist. And I think, to answer your question properly, for me, listening these great musicians and being behind the board is like, oh, now I see the mastery and the level of musicianship and where I can take it myself. I play guitar, but when I see Tim Reynolds and Ron Carter, it's mind blowing. It's like I need to learn a lot, but it's a good opportunity for me, to be there behind the board and see them. So I think it helped me as a musician, as an engineer.
Awesome.
To observe, the field, the landscape just opened up so wide. It's like,
sure.
Take it.
Well, both of you have mentioned technology, obviously, and you have the Art of Tech show. And Dennis, as a creator, as a person who writes a lot of music, I'm sure you have your go-to tools that you start off with, that you kind of get cranking with. How did you find IK Multimedia SampleTank 4? How did you find that?
We've been working with artist relations for probably 6 years already, and Randy Fuchs introduced us to a lot of great products, just amazing products, from cables,
including
microphones.
our mics.
You got the same, right? You got the same.
I do.
Yeah.
Lewitt microphones. Yep.
So they just introduced us to a lot of great products, and the recent product was IK Multimedia, and SampleTank 4 and T-Rex 5. Those two products we got from them, and I started exploring SampleTank 4 and libraries, is just endless sounds, and how how you can you can open the preset, but the abilities to manipulate and change the sounds within the preset. That's, I think the possibilities are endless with IK Multimedia products. And how I like how SampleTank would have you load the sample, but then it'll give you a synth window for synth, so you can change the attack, release, decay, sustain, digital filters. But then another window will take you to a T-Rex, those 500 modules where you can insert like compressor, EQ, and all that stuff. And the amount of instrument is just crazy. I was looking for gong, right? That you take from those old kung fu movies.
I love it. I love it.
I just go to search, I type in, and I have like 5 different gongs, and then the libraries is just so big. It's like, oh man, that's dope.
That's
awesome. Then I type in chimes, and it gives me like 5 different presets of chimes with probably another 20 different sounds within one preset.
That is awesome. So then that takes me to the question then, because you're what people have said about SampleTank. A lot of producers in the planet have said, SampleTank 4, SampleTank in general, is like the Swiss Army knife of sound modules, because you can just about find anything in there. You can just about do anything inside the product itself. You don't always have to almost go out of it, because you got so much happening in the background. Do you feel like it can be your Swiss Army knife in that way? Does it kind of ring true for you?
Oh, definitely. I think the recent library we added, EDM pack, that's been released maybe like a month or 2 months ago, is just adding those dance samples, bass, synths, pads, and all of that on top of what I already had. Is just a lot. And then I worked on my friend's session, and he sent me a lot of MIDI stuff. Like, he's just sent me a Logic sessions with built-in sounds. But I was like, okay, I don't like this bass sound, a regular bass sound. I was like, okay, let me open a SampleTank 4 and find the proper bass sound for this. And it took me 3-4 minutes just to find that sample. And I was like, all right, let me tweak it a little bit and make it sound smooth. Not, because I mean, sometimes sample can sound like sample.
Yeah, they sound stale.
Yeah, but I found myself, picking that sound and tweaking with a little bit EQ and compressor. He was happy.
That's all that matters, man. As long as he's happy, as long as you get the sound you're looking for, it makes it work. That's it. And I know you mentioned the effects that are on board, and I know Fela, you are a real big fan of T-Rax, and T-Rax and a lot of our components of T-Rax are built into SampleTank 4. So not the whole thing, but a lot of the components from T-Rax are built in there. What was good for you about the T-Rax product, or the components that you liked about it?
The tape saturation for me, because I don't make music like Dennis does so much. So I'm just like adding some tasty stuff to the audio that I'm getting, and just doing my regular thing of compression, and just getting great gain structure and just making everything make sense. So yeah, I mean, it's just, and the tape saturation is so great because you just put it over top of it, and it just gives it this extra level of like NPR-ness,
Nice,
what people want to hear in their ear, that just smooths everything out.
Nice.
And whether that's music or just vocals, with the podcasting stuff. And
that's a good idea.
Yeah, and using it, because we do a lot of video now. Once we started 23dB and working with Randy and stuff, we started doing a lot of video production for manufacturers like you guys, like IK Multimedia, and just the stuff that we really like, the stuff that we really can get behind, and showing how it can be heard and how it's used and how to take your project to that next level that we all are just striving every day to make happen as production people.
Yeah.
So yeah, so just being able to use IK Multimedia on daily now, whether
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
creating music, he's creating music for our podcast clients
Hmm.
for their intros, to
Hmm.
also putting it on the actual podcast. It just
Hmm.
IK Multimedia just helps the whole.
So we're getting all of it on all sides. You're touching us from
Yes,
every direction. So that means,
yes.
Dennis, you get to use the T-Rex products inside of SampleTank. How does that work for you?
Well, sometimes when I load a preset, right, maybe it's too aggressive for me for certain part of the song or music, and I'm like, all right, let me go back to T-Rex and see what kind of effects are open. I was like, okay, well, there is a compressor, EQ, there is a verb, there is a delay. I was like, all right, let me turn down, let me get rid of the compressor and make it a little bit,
Hmm.
softer, and put it a little bit on the background, not up front,
Hmm.
and or adding my own filters, because in SampleTank they let you use those filters.
Hmm.
Like I think they're sample after Moog filters
Hmm. Hmm.
that has like
Yep.
high pass, low pass filters,
Hmm.
and on the
Hmm.
synths that's what you use in analog.
Hmm.
That you need those filters to or sometimes when you crank the filter, that how those sounds you either open or close.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, was the oscillator.
Uh huh.
Uh, and with T-Rex is flexible enough for you to get whatever sound you want, whether you
Hmm.
want to add more or less. I haven't
Good.
tried
Good.
to add tape to SampleTank 4, and I don't know if it's
Well, tape
possible.
tape isn't in there yet, but you never know. We could be adding that one to it later. I
Exactly.
know that there are multiple components from T-Rex built in, and there's some amplitude components, which of course guitar effects. Have you had a chance to test any of those out in some of the sounds?
I've had a demo of Amplitude back in the day, maybe 6 or 8 years ago, and they were great back then. And now I don't even know how they sound now, because I don't own a full library. But based on what we have from IK Multimedia, is just
Yeah. Well, there are some amplitude effects built into SampleTank 4. So as you start to dive in a little further and look for different sounds, you can add some aggression, add some distortion, add some chorus, and things like that from amplitude. So when you look at the effects that are built into SampleTank 4, I think there's 32, if I recall correctly. Those are all built in from our T-Rex amplitude products. So you'll be able to see more of that as you go, and I'll have those up on the screen so you guys can take a look at those that are diving into SampleTank 4 now. Just know that you have an arsenal of tools that are behind the scenes that can get you even more done, help you shape your sound even more. What about the arpeggiator? Did you get a chance to play with that at all? Either of you guys get check that out?
oh yeah, I love arpeggiators for any electronic music. That's one of top three uh, samples I load. It's leads, pads, and arpeggiator, and of course drum
Nice.
machine. Those elements are, I think, they're a must for any electronic music,
Yeah, yeah.
because they
And
are.
to have, go ahead.
The arpeggiator just adds movement to the composition, whether you do 4 quarter notes, 8 notes, 16 notes, or 30-second notes. And of course, with SampleTank 4, you can adjust that, and the dynamics of arpeggiator and all of that, and the length, and add verb or take out verb, chorus, and all of those effects.
So that being on board just makes it even more of a Swiss Army knife because you can do so much creation inside the piece itself.
Yeah, indeed, I agree. Yeah, helpful.
And Fela, I know I don't know if you've gotten to dive into it as much, but there's a mixer on SampleTank 4 as well. It has its own 32-channel mixer built inside of SampleTank. It's just like having a keyboard because everything's there. And figuring out that you can put this and apply it in any DAW, so you can use it with, Logic, Pro Tools, Studio One, whichever ones you. What DAW do you guys normally work in?
Logic.
Logic.
Yeah,
And
we
it does
actually.
it. Go ahead.
We actually working on a new video for Tape Machine Collection. It's coming out next, probably within a week. By the time
Nice.
you release this episode, it'll probably be out. And I have a home setup, and I'm running High Sierra on the Mac with Logic. And I was just curious to open session on High Sierra, saved it, and then bring back to the studio and open an OS Catalina on Logic, and see if have any issues with the presets I had in Logic, and if it opens the way it opens in my home setup, and I open it on the studio computer, and everything was there. The levels was there, the EQ was there, the tape was there, everything was there.
So everything worked perfectly. That's what's good for IK, man. Compatibility. That's awesome.
Yes,
that's awesome.
It helps a lot because I can travel between two computers and work on the same session.
Wow. So it just sounds like SampleTank and T-Rax have been some tools that really help the two of you get the job done for your clients, because you're talking about audio and video productions. You're talking about mixing for artists along the way, for recording, for mastering. These tools just help you get it done, right?
Oh, yes.
Nice.
We're always looking for things that just make our workflows easier and quicker, because then you get paid quicker, you get out of there quicker, and you can get more stuff done. Yeah.
And one last question for Dennis. So you talked about the SampleTank 4 sound engine, because you've been able to use that and change the oscillators and stuff like that. Has that something that excuse me, you talked about using the SampleTank 4 engine and how important that was to help you shape sounds. I think when I tell people about SampleTank 4 engine, I tell them it's complex, but it's simple. It's simple to use, everything you see, but it does a lot of things in the background. Do you agree with that it's simple but complex but simple? What do you think?
I think it has a simple interface on the very first part on the left side. I think you see what libraries you own, and then the second line you have the instruments you can choose from, whether it's regular bass, synth bass, drums, pad, leads. And then once you click on that, it gives you like a subgenre, whether it's aggressive, mellow, dance, pop. I think it's easy to navigate sounds, or either go search. I find myself using search. I need gong. I can't be scrolling through all the sounds. I just search gong, and boom, I have it. But
that's awesome.
As far as being complex, I mean, if you're going for complex sounds, SampleTank 4 is definitely a platform for you to create those complex sounds. I mean, if you want to implement compressor, EQ, chorus, reverb, delay, distortion, filters, and all of that, you can open that in the T-Rax module. You can add that, but also come back to the synth window and apply more effects on top of that.
Yeah. So it just gives you a plethora of different options to choose from.
Yes, definitely.
Yes. Awesome. Well, you two have been great guests for me, kind of walking me through your history and then tell me what you love about the IK Multimedia products. Today, we're going to talk a little bit or actually introduce SampleTank 4 Max as the freebie today. So all the people that are watching this episode get the chance to win SampleTank 4, so they're all excited to get to the end. But we want to let you know that 23dB Productions is available. You go to 23dbproductions.com, right, guys? To get, if you have information that you want to maybe get your track mixed or produced, or you want to have some for front of house, these are the guys that get it done, right?
Yes. And check out our oneofoneproductions.com website if you want to know about our podcast business and studio business.
And what about the podcast comes on when that you actually do now, the Art of Music Tech?
Yes, weekly.
Wednesdays.
Yeah, usually Wednesdays. And
at what time? Help us out. Wednesday, what time?
Okay. Well, it's usually like by the afternoon, like 2:00. Yeah.
Okay, so is it a general time, or do you actually have it every time at 2:00?
It's a general time, because sometimes we get a little busy. And it's just like, it'll get it out that night. I don't know.
Well, look for, is it on YouTube? Is it on Amazon? How do they see the platform?
We're on YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, all the good stuff.
So they can find you on Wednesdays, sometime in the afternoon.
All of that.
Yes.
And please follow us on all our social media, on Facebook, IG, even LinkedIn. Let's talk more.
Well, we know that these are the professionals that are out there doing it every day, and if they're using IK Multimedia tools, so can you. Now, we hope you've enjoyed this great segment on Deep Flow's Audio Toolbox, but we know you're waiting for the free stuff, right? Of course you are. We're always waiting for the free stuff. So let's not let you down. Today's question, though, you have to answer is pretty easy. When we talked to Fela in the beginning, she said she worked with one particular artist that she ran front of house with for almost 6 years. One artist. If you can remember that person's name, put it in the chat right now, and that can win you a copy of SampleTank 4 Max. That's right, SampleTank 4 Max, just for knowing the one artist that Fela worked for many years as front of house. You can put that name down there and you're walking away with the baddest sound and groove workstation on the market. With tons of sounds, effects, you name it, arpeggiators all in there to make you have some great music. Tell me what you got. Let's see if you can do it. Hang in there, guys. And as usual, wash those hands. Be careful out there. And let's see who wins SampleTank 4 Max today. Take care, guys. Be careful. See you next time.